Welcome back to the channel. I'm Lauren Fix, and this is 4 Minute Friday. We have something a little different for you this week with the Geneva Auto Show getting canceled. And I did post everything in case you wanted to go to Geneva or you were planning to go to Geneva. All the highlights are on last week's 4 Minute Friday. But I want to bring in an expert who can talk about the impact to the Geneva Auto Show and other auto shows, potentially New York, and how this is going to impact the auto industry and car reviewers and those of you that are just enthusiasts. So I'd like to introduce you to Paul Bryan. He's my co-host. And he has some insight that most people don't have, how the coronavirus is impacting auto shows and potentially impacting drive events and the future of the auto industry. And this is going to impact everyone, I think, at some point. So I'd like to welcome Paul Bryan. Hello. Can you first start off by telling us how we can find you on social media? Because I know people are going to want to connect with you and ask you questions.
I communicate most often on Facebook at Paul Bryan, Paulbrin, and Twitter is probably a real good way to get me at the Paul Bryan.
And Paul and I co-host a show called His Turn, Her Turn on our Car Coach Reports channel. But Paul, tell us a little about your background with auto shows, because I don't think anybody has this kind of experience.
Well, I think it comes with the eminence grease. Been around for a while, and 20 years of that was working on the management team, senior management team of the Chicago Auto Show, the nation's biggest auto show. What we're going to talk about now, okay, and then the other things, I hosted a radio show on WLS in Chicago called Drive Chicago for about 20 years as well. I've been involved in the automotive industry since as far back as I can remember. And you and I partnered up here, 5 years ago or whatever, and it's been very, very successful partnership and friendship, and family come together. I like it a lot. In terms of the topic at hand, this is actually a very bittersweet thing for me to talk about as to what we're looking at. And I think that people need to know, first off, that there are two auto shows. Whenever you hear like the New York Auto Show or the Detroit Auto Show or LA or Chicago in the old days, there are two auto shows that go on. And you say, Paul, what are you talking about? There's two auto shows. There's an auto show before the doors open to the public. That's a media auto show. And for the better part of 30 years, 40 years, I guess, manufacturers have used that media preview of the auto show as a means by which they can get media together and do introductions of new cars, new products, bring their executives forward in order to talk about any of a number of topics, whether it's sales, future product, market conditions, whatever it might be. Well, this coronavirus thing is really getting in the middle of everything. And we've seen auto shows really in decline over the past couple of years. They aren't quite as grand as they used to be. The costs for doing auto shows are tremendous. But there was really no other way that the manufacturers could do events like that. Well, the very technology that you and I are using right now in order to talk about this is the very reason why we're talking about this decline that's going on. The coronavirus thing got everybody real nervous. They shut down the Beijing show. That didn't happen. The New York show, they're still saying that they're going forward. We'll see what's happening here.
Geneva's gone. They shut down Geneva.
The Geneva show went away last Thursday. For this media part of the auto show especially, the impact for the industry and for us on the media side has been pretty dramatic. And yet at the same time, it's very telling as to what we may be seeing in the future. Because everybody who was going to do something at the Geneva show said, well, it's a damn shame that this happened, and it's a very expensive cost for this coronavirus thing. But you know what? We can stream it. We can put it online, and
Right.
that's what everybody did. They,
How does that impact the future of auto shows? Is that going to be the future of auto shows, do you think? Or you think we're going to go back to the same old, maybe next year?
I think that this is not the pivotal moment. I think the pivotal moment happened before this, but I think that the coronavirus thing is accelerating the downward slide of auto shows in the importance of marketing. Remember that the whole theory of the auto show is, my dad's got a barn, let's have a play. So whoever had a great big barn could take their products and put them in the barn. And they said, okay, now we've got them in the barn. What are we going to do? We got to make it glitzy. We got to make it cool so that when people come by, they'll stop and they'll look at it. And maybe if we're lucky, and maybe if we have some great looking cars and some news there and something else, we'll get some folks to stop by and get interested in our cars. And then maybe within a month or so after the auto show, then we'll try to convert that into a sale at the dealership. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. As a matter of fact, let's take an arbitrary $5 million figure for doing an auto show display at a major auto show.
That seems light to me. I think it would be more than that.
It probably is. And if you're doing a news event, it is way light. But you're sitting around the executive table at Fuji Manoli Motors, and the chairman says, how much do you want for an auto show? And you say, well, it's $5 million, $6 million. And we're going to do this and kind of hope that somebody's going to come by a Fuji Manoli. Yeah. And the marketing guy, especially the digital guy, he comes by now and he says, tell you what, Chairman Fuji, here's what I'm going to do with $5 million. I'm going to go online and I'm going to data mine. I'm going to take the data that we can acquire. And I can talk about people who already have a like for our vehicles, or who already own our vehicles, or are likely suspects for conquest sales for our vehicles. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to bang their mailbox and their social media accounts and everything else. And instead of doing the auto show, why don't we have a traveling road show of experiential events, and we'll just bring them right there. And that way we have not a spray and pray, but we have a very focused look at potential customers and turning them into actual customers.
A lot of manufacturers are already doing that, right? You're seeing events at musical festivals or car shows like Pebble Beach or Amelia Island, or I don't know, the Masters or Daytona, to showcase specific vehicles.
Well, the other thing that happened too, I mean, if you look back at just the past 3 weeks or 4 weeks of our life, where Genesis, for instance, we traveled to Miami for the introduction of the Genesis GV80. And down there, and instead of getting us for a 20-minute news conference slot in the middle of a media preview day, we spent the day with the Genesis people. That way they can identify media that they really want to talk to and they really want to address, and focus them for 24 hours on what they're doing.
Right.
That's something. And then a week after that, where did we go? We went to
Cadillac.
Los Angeles. We went to Los Angeles for the unveiling of the new Cadillac Escalade. Same thing. So those are two events that would have normally been done in the media preview of an auto show. And now they're saying, better mousetrap out here, I think. And I think they're really wise to do it. And especially that Cadillac event, that was stunning to me that they did that on the week of the Chicago Auto Show media preview.
Right, and we went there instead of Chicago. because it crossed over. Now, so is this going to then evolve into no more drive events where they
No,
reveal the car and then they send you the car?
no, I don't think so. I think that they'll probably, well, every time that we go on a drive event, there's always a presentation. Now, we did see something on the Kia Seltos program 2 weeks ago in San Antonio, and the way that the presentation was done by James Bell and the Kia team, I think was pretty effective. I like
I
that.
agree.
Instead of doing the dry balls walk around and the Germans are famous for this. I mean,
Yeah.
they just
Yeah.
get it gets so technical, and we were talking about many horsepowers, and then they said, "Let's go drive."
Right. That could be
And
the future where they have a video or a live event and have us drive vehicles or send vehicles to those specific people. Because remember, our group has, when I first started, I don't know how many people were with you, but about 100 journalists. I think we're down to maybe 30 or 40 solid
yeah,
outlets that actually have some real reach. I mean, we're not
yeah,
talking about the influencers, we're talking about journalists.
yeah.
And the list has shrunk dramatically, and it's continuing to shrink as Automobile's gone, Auto Week is gone, 13 titles are gone. You're watching regular newspapers disappear, and people are going to the internet. So, what do you think the future of that is?
I think the drive events will last because that's a good way for them to put their vehicles in the hands of people on roads that they find suitable for those vehicles. It's not like when a journalist gets a car for a week to drive and they put it in the driveway, and then all of a sudden the exposure that you've got is driving to the local supermarket.
Yeah,
Uh, when we're on a drive event, we get to take a look at windy roads. We look at mountain roads. We look at off-road situations. We look
right.
at towing situations. We look at all of the different things that vehicle is supposed to be doing, and I think that those will live. But
I hope so. I mean, because it impacts a lot of people's careers. I mean, not just you and I,
on,
but there's a lot of people.
on both sides.
Right.
Remember, it's not just on the receiving end of that. The industry of producing those events is big business as well. They're going to be very
Right.
protective of it.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. So the future of auto shows is online, or the future of auto shows is come on down, bring the kids, and jump in the car.
No, right now you can make an argument there are two shows in the
Right.
United States that really have that kind of swing, and that's New York and L.A. at those two
I
shows.
agree.
Detroit used to have that swing, and it may yet, because with the change of date of the Detroit show from its traditional January date to the summertime. It's right now. It's you're shooting dice. Rod Alberts and the guys at the Detroit auto dealers are kind of shooting dice, saying, this is where I think we have to go. We're going to incorporate more experiential things. And one of the things is that Cobo Hall is a crappy hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, compared to McCormick Place,
Right.
which is like the standard. So they're going to be moving down into the riverfront area there in Detroit, and we'll see what happens. But Chicago has lost a lot of its glow, and
Yeah.
uh,
How about other shows like Toronto or Geneva or Frankfurt or Beijing?
well, Frankfurt is over. I mean, there is no more Frankfurt Auto Show. The German car makers abandoned Frankfurt after the show. Hell, the guy who ran it quit in the first week of the show last year.
That's not good.
And oh, so that's gone. So Munich is looking at it. Stuttgart is looking at it. There was one other city that escapes me at the moment. The big Italian show is also going to move away. And I predict that will probably wind up within calendar spitting distance of the Italian Grand Prix in September.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because they want to keep it in the north. because that's where all the manufacturing is, and that's
Right, Bologna area. Hmm.
well, north of Bologna, even Milan, Torino. You know, Torino is the headquarters town for our Fiat Group. So we've got that. And Alfa Romeo is based in Milan. A little bit further south, as you get down into Maranello, then you get the Ferrari and Lamborghini and those guys. But all the carrozziere, the big coach houses, are predominantly Torino based.
Hmm.
So they're going to want to stay up there. So I don't know what's going to happen with Germany, but I think that everything that's going on right now with this virus thing has really put a brick on the foot of the accelerator pedal on moving these things forward.
Yeah,
So we'll
I agree. It's concerning. I mean, if this virus eventually will get under control, they say as it gets warmer that the virus will be under control. Let's say it does. But does that mean they're going to go backwards and go, we're going to go right back to doing these overpriced presentations and millions of dollars to bring all these people in? I mean, this impacts a lot of things. I mean, World
yeah.
Car of the Year, North American Car and Truck of the Year. I mean, you start looking at the impact to consumers not going to shows. That means it impacts the economy of the local area, whether it be Detroit, Chicago, LA, New York. Geneva, millions of dollars lost in hotels, food, whatever. All of that is a global impact. I think it's much more of an impact than just, oh, we lost a show and a few $1,000s per brand.
I want to see what's going to happen in Geneva. I mean, they had that show. They had to have had that show 80-90% built
Yeah.
when they pulled the plug on that. So who's responsible? I've talked to a couple of manufacturers who have said, we kind of self-insure on that. We really don't carry catastrophe insurance for it.
Wow.
So, well, I mean, hell, who would have figured, Lauren? I mean,
I don't know. I wouldn't have thought that. I figured they would have had insurance and pulled the catastrophe card
well,
or the act of God card and it'd get paid out. But the
I mean,
reinsurance companies don't like that either.
nobody lays out 1 square yard of carpet at any auto show without presenting a big general liability insurance
Right.
policy for the organizers, and the organizers have to carry it as well. But is this
A black swan, maybe?
well? Yeah, I mean, it's very definitely a black swan.
Yeah.
The automotive black swan. How about that?
Yeah.
I don't know. This is there's gonna be lawsuits.
Oh,
Trust
yeah.
There's going to be lawsuits going on with companies. You generally figure that an auto show company, with whatever their budget is for auto shows, that it's divided up about a third, and a third. 1/3 for move in, 1/3 for move out, and about a third for the operation when they're open. And usually that percentage can even come down even lower. The bulk of the money is the move in, the building the display, moving it in, moving it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because things are relatively simple and stable once the show is open.
Right.
So,
Well, this should be an interesting thing. And I know that people will have tons of questions based on what you've told us. So you can follow Paul at the Paul Bryan on Twitter. He's on Instagram. We have the His Turn, Her Turn page. Paul has his own Facebook page. And of course, Car Coach Reports has the His Turn, Her Turn channel. But, I think we'll have to try this again because I think Paul is very enlightening. He's got a whole different perspective on this industry. And I know every week I rant and rave and stand on my soapbox, but it's always great to bring in a guest who really has more insight than probably anybody in the industry.
I'll tell you this that I've found most telling about our compadres on the journalist side is I get calls from people, and I've done a jillion interviews so far, and I know I'm going to be doing more, but from the journalist side, and that's kind of what the genesis was of why we decided we would talk about this in the format that we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
From the journalist side, most of them, my dad had a great phrase. He said, some people don't know. He said, but most people don't even suspect. And Vern was right. The journalists don't know jack squat about how an auto show operates or how marketing operates or anything.
They just want to know what's for dinner.
Yeah. What's for dinner, and what's the bump and rebound rate of the shock absorber that they've got? It's and it's really quite astonishing to watch. But it's going to be fun to play in, and it's going to be incredibly interesting over the next couple of months when we see more of this fallout from the coronavirus.
Well, we'll have to definitely revisit this. I thank everybody for watching and listening. Of course, your comments are appreciated. We will both be answering those comments, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Check out our Corvette review. We just did the Kia Seltos, the Hyundai Venue. Oh my gosh, we've got tons of cars that if you're thinking about buying something, let us know, and we do answer all the comments.
We do, happily. And we sometimes get snarky. Not ugly, but
No, you get snarky.
Sometimes it's exactly what I said. Sometimes I get snarky.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Paul, for joining us.
You're most welcome.
And we'll look forward to checking out and talking to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.